Dear friends and family, hello, Pranam. Following is the conversation with Mr. Ashish Giri. This year, he has been conferred designated senior advocate at Patna High Court. In this conversation, we talked about various cases that he has been engaged in as an amicus, and I have had a good fortune of being part of all these cases during my judicial clerkship at Patna High Court. It is an honor to welcome you in this podcast.
Pleasure, all pleasure.
I mean, during my judicial clerkship, yours was the most seen faces that I have found in the court. And I could go through your petitions. I have gone through your written submissions. I've learned so much from you. I found your written submissions so comprehensive to the point.
Yes.
And I've always thought of doing this with you, but I'm really glad that even after such a long duration of time, I got to do this with you.
Pleasure is all mine, and happy that you got in touch with me, and it's always a good forum to exchange my ideas and my views of how things have been.
Yeah.
So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, this is precisely why I wanted to do this, because during my tenure, what I found was there's a limitation to judicial order.
Yes.
You could see someone argue before the bench, but you really don't know the person.
Yes.
So I wanted to approach you and talk to you, but because the limitations of my position and everything, I couldn't approach you during that time. But I always had this itch in my mind that maybe someday I'll get to do this.
No, I'm happy. In fact, I'll tell you, this is my first podcast.
Oh.
And I think it couldn't have been better than sitting with you and giving my views on the subject and the topics which you think is relevant for the masses to reach out to.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much for validating this idea, because when you start, you have your own set of doubts and insecurities.
No, I was very agreeable to your views of starting this, because I thought litigation now is important to reach to the majority of people in a way that they understand what the cause is, the ultimate results are, and to understand the whole system better so that they know where they are getting into.
Great. Since I've last seen you arguing, a lot has changed. Now you have designated as a senior advocate, so congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the cases that I've seen you arguing and some of your more important cases. But before that, I would like to know more about you. Like, were you born in Patna?
Yes, I am Bihari. I was born in Patna, but my hometown is Gopalganj. And I am a third generation lawyer, because my grandfather was a lawyer in the civil court Gopalganj. And then my father started his practice from Gopalganj civil court 2 years. And then in 1974, he shifted to Patna.
Okay, he was the first person to move.
Yes, so he is the first guy who had come to Patna. And then first guy as in the family as a lawyer. And then he did really well, and he was designated as one of the youngest senior lawyers in his time.
Yes, I think 39. No?
Yes, 39. And then thereafter, because of him, and thereafter he has ever since been practicing here and lived here, and I was born here. And then I have been grown up till 10th. I was in Patna, so I was very influenced with my father's lifestyle, because I would see him being the guy taking all the calls and being independent. So I would always wanted to do something like that. So that subconsciously, it was always that I wanted to be like him. And I thought the best way to be like him is to do what he does.
Yeah, right.
So I had never confusion about my career. In fact, in the beginning days, I always thought I'm going to get into litigation and all that.
Okay.
So after 10th, I did my +2 from Delhi, APJ Sheikh Sarai. And because I knew litigation, I had to do that. So I made my journey easy by taking up a lesser difficult subject. So instead of opting for science or something, I had taken humanities.
Okay. For your +2 or graduation?
For +2.
+2. Okay.
And then after graduation, we had a 5-year course. So I had gone to Bangalore, Ramaiah College of Law. And I finished and then joined in 2007.
I also did my law from Bangalore. We'll talk about that. But before that, so since you are so clear about your career choice, did you take more interest in studying political science and civics and all those subjects during school?
Yes, in fact, my favorite subject was political science in my school, because I found it a more like a common knowledge subject rather than a boring bookish subject. So I was very interested in political science.
So humanities always interested you?
Yeah, humanities did interest me a lot, but then eventually, because it appears now that I was more law oriented and I liked the general social aspect of things. So I was pretty comfortable with these subjects.
Please throw some light on how it was growing up in a family where you see your father as a lawyer, where there's always some form of uncertainty, even when you are so settled and experienced at bar.
See,
so how it was
one
for
thing
you?
I'll tell you, to the credit of my father and my mother, because growing up we never felt as if my parents had any ups and downs in life, because for us it did not reflect upon our growing. So for us, I thought my father was successful from day one, which later I realized, of course, he had his huge
because
struggles.
why I'm asking this question is some of my friends who initially thought again, second generation lawyer, who initially thought not of pursuing law, their reason was because they found their father very unattentive, always busy with work, some form of uncertainty always with life. So they chased some form of order in their lives. So even when they chose to study law, they never thought of practicing law.
Right, yeah, I know. But in fact, to the contrary, that's what I said. What I saw in his, of course, he was very busy. So he didn't have much time for us, in the sense that to go outing with us or celebrate birthday parties and all. But since he was busy, he has his other priorities and engagements, and there was family pressure. So of course, now I understand his difficulties. But even growing up, all I could see was that the way he would work, the way he would decide for his own, and there was nobody else dictating him things or him running around people.
Independence, autonomy.
So I really like that freedom he had or he built, and the confidence he had, and then slowly the social standing he had, and the reputation he started having, and the kind of respect we were having because of him. So it really was all the factors which
all of them have been ideals.
Yes. So I thought that because here is a personality who has done it, who is a successful person, and I want to be like him, like at least to the extent of success. So why try to reach that success in another field when he can guide me in the same field? So I thought the safest approach for me at that point of time to be successful was to be under his guidance and start a career where he is himself the champion and he can guide me through.
Nobody can teach you better.
Yes, and plus with my father, the thing was, he's been an absolute brilliant guru, in the sense that he would not discriminate that you're a son or you're a brother or you're a uncle or
so
whoever.
He was equally harsh on you.
He was, in fact, to be very frank, I think he was even harsher than he was to his other juniors. So that eventually added up to a great extent for building my legal acumen and my discipline in life. So because
when did you move to Delhi for your schooling?
That was long time back, I think 10th.
Which class?
After 10th.
After
2000,
10th, for your plus 2?
For my plus 2.
Okay.
So 2 years I was in Delhi. 2000, 2001 and 2 I passed out. Then went to Bangalore. So it was a 5-year course. So 2007 then I came back to Patna, and then straight away, like I said, no time wasted.
Since we are talking about your father, there's lots going on for the people who does not have someone in the fraternity.
Yes.
They think that it is all roses and petals for someone who comes from a legal fraternity.
Legal fraternity.
So I would like to talk a little bit about your own struggles, your own insecurities, because I know. I'll give you an instance. A friend of mine again, whose dad is a very good lawyer in Bombay High Court. So she tells me that for a couple of years, no client has taken her seriously. She would go to talk to the clients, and the client would always insist that I would want to talk to your dad only. They did not show any confidence.
Absolutely.
So she lost it. She was there for 2 years. She lost it. And she was like, I don't want to be under my father, where I'll always be measured with his success
Of
and I
course,
want
yeah.
to do something of my own.
Yes.
She got impatient, and because I think Bombay also has a lot of opportunities, she ended up joining other firm. So did you go through any?
Yes, I'll tell you
such-
my experience. I'll tell you, see, what I realized that, of course, when, see, no matter how big you become, I think you're always your father's or your parents' children. So I think you should not fight it. That your independence,
Acknowledge it.
yeah, you should acknowledge the fact that if somebody is saying that, okay, you're so and so's son, then that's, of course, that's a matter of fact.
That's a
You
reality,
are,
yeah.
and that's a great thing, and there's nothing to be feel bad about. Now, professionally, like, yes. So when I joined, the advantage, of course, like you said, that people say that it's roses and petals. So yes, in the beginning, it's roses and petals because number one, you don't have to worry about bread and butter because, of course, your parents are there taking care of it.
Yeah.
So that struggle is out. Number two, the first presentation, like everybody knows you through your father. So slowly your name is spread across the bar faster than probably somebody who is new to this profession because of your background and your dad's and your father's connection or your mother, I mean, whoever is in the practice. So that's the second advantage you get. But then apart from these advantages, the disadvantages are major because then you're directly compared to their caliber.
True.
And then every action you are being judged and compared. So
it's like Abhishek Bachchan is a decently good actor, but is
then
always measured
exactly,
with Amitabh Bachchan.
Exactly.
So you can't fight that.
You can't fight that. You have to accept it.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, so you need to accept this fact that you'll be compared, and so you need, instead of working out of trying to be independent or trying to be an own different name, one should always focus to work hard. That then people say that you're equally good than the parent who is under whose guidance you are working. And then for me that worked because my initial struggle of profession was not just to make the bar and the bench happy, but I was, the most fear I had, I didn't want anybody to come to
Honor
my
of your
father and say
family,
that your son is not doing that well. So for that I wanted to make him feel proud, so I really worked harder than what probably I would have if it was not for him. And then it paid off. Then the tables turned, and then people started talking that even belonging to such a background, yet he is working so hard. And then few of my decisions, which I thought was pretty nice, was like after a point of time, I made my own office. And then I started working. I stopped the assistant works, and I was not soliciting much, but morely in the main streamline of litigation and arguing cases. So eventually, you are recognized your good work, and nothing goes waste.
One thing I would like to highlight here, people talk about the struggles of a first generation lawyer. What I could understand now is one difference is for a first generation lawyer, their family is also not considerate about the fact that this is the profession which takes time, which takes longer to do well. And with when you come from a family, this fact is already due acknowledged.
Yes. So I'll see, I think now if you talk about current scenario, I think now there's a lot of opening when it comes to litigation, because it's just not earlier, especially in Bihar, there was a very limited scope of litigation and the lawyers. But now with the development in Bihar, with the educational growth in Bihar, the developmental growth, infrastructural growth, so litigation has also taken a new horizon. So there are far more options available. So there are more clientage, different type of clientage, and more modern clientage, which are more relating to the young lawyers. And they are like earlier, I remember in my growing up days, the clients would judge a lawyer by his look totally, more than the knowledge. Because for them, if a lawyer, if they're paying, they would want him to be a little old, a little fat.
You meant that by look. Okay.
So now, because I see now a lot of young lawyers having their own briefs and practicing the code, that's because the client's perception has changed. So they now judge you on your not on your appearance and how old you are, but on your performance and your knowledge. And that's because of the modern attitude now the society is seeing.
I think with the advent of technology, clients have also gotten smarter.
Everything is becoming
so clients could measure if their lawyer is worth
so now if they think that the lawyer is good, smart, so it doesn't have a problem with them if they're young or so eventually it's something which they have started developing a trust upon a lawyer.
We'll talk more about your journey as a lawyer, but before that, let's move to Bangalore, where you did your graduation from. Why did you decide to choose? Why did you decide to pursue it from Bangalore? What were your options?
See, initially I knew see, because my father always thought that I being a student should always lead a life like a student, and he didn't want us to be that.
To be in Bihar.
Yeah. No, not in Bihar, but he didn't want us to live a lifestyle unwanting of a student. So, so I was very sure that he will not, he will not buy me AC. He will not buy me all those luxury things, and I'll have to lead a very normal life. So I thought maybe first important thing is let's choose a place which has a good climate.
Okay.
So the first choice
That was your
for that,
consideration.
okay, since I'm not gonna get all these, so let's be in a place where I can survive in fan. So I chose Bangalore and Pune. I wanted one of these, and I got through Bangalore, and I went there for my admission. I really liked the place, the weather, the ambience, the environment. So I was like, yeah, I'm happy with it. And plus, I had my my father's friend. He was a judge at that time in the Patna High Court. So his sons were also studying in that college itself. So I had a guiding factor also. So I thought that, you know,
in your own batch, or
he was 2 years senior to me.
Senior, okay.
So I was very comfortable. So I liked the fact that there's somebody to take care and some known people there. So I was very comfortable. So I thought, yeah, Bangalore would be a great. So that's how Bangalore.
How was Ramaiah back then? What role Ramaiah played in your journey as a lawyer?
See, it really, I mean, I think if we talk about personality development, the kind of, I mean, not only Ramaiah, but I think
Bangalore
all the college, college life is like you being thrown out in the sharp waters. Otherwise, rest of the life before that is like swimming pool, swimming with lifeguards around you. So that was the first time when you see you're alone and you have to, it was basically everyday survival. So you would see the real people, the real problems, find your solutions yourself, and your decisions are facing, you are yourself directly responsible, and you are directly facing the consequences. So that helps your entire enhancement of the personality. It's like raw, everything is raw there. You are face front on meeting the problems, the good times, the bad times. So it really, I think that's the most
Did you
important.
take part in any extra co-curricular activities?
See, I was a lot involved in sports there. I used to love sports. So I was sportsman of the year also. I used to play a lot of sports.
What did you play?
All. I was very good in cricket, volleyball, badminton.
Do you still play? Do you get time to play?
So, yeah, initially we used to have these tournaments here, and now in fact sometimes we have these cricket tournaments with senior lawyers, and we have these
Supreme Court matches. Also recently they started bar and
bench. And I think it's very important because the kind of stress and the seriousness of the work is that you need something like this to ease up the tension. And half of the time, the lawyers are with the judges and arguing and trying to convince them. So there's a lot of, most of the time, there's stress level involved. So when you have these kind of outside interaction, it breaks the ice.
True.
Which is good for the court proceedings also subsequently because things are a little calmer.
Did you take part in Moot during college? Yeah,
we had, but I would take part only in the compulsory moots because I thought the non-compulsory moots, I would rather spend time playing and enhancing my extracurricular activity and skills. But I did participate in the Moot, yes.
What's your opinion on, does Moot play any critical role in making you a good lawyer?
See, it's a good experience, at least first-hand, knowing that what future entails as a litigation. But yes,
but you already knew, right? You must have been to the courts before.
Yes, I've seen
your dad,
my father's work in the courts and all that. But of course, you don't see it when you go as a student and you see when you go as a lawyer. There's so much of a difference the way of seeing it. So the whole perception changes after that. So, but I think Moot is important, and especially now the good thing about the Moots are they are taking the real subjects which have happened, which has, and then they are reenacting it, the litigation side. So I've now judged a lot of Moots also in the colleges here. So the difference I see, yes, of course, because these Moots are completely legal and paper and book based. So because there's no human.
Again, it's not a right representation of what happens.
But at least there is some representation.
There's something, yes.
So that's good. Like something is better than nothing.
Yes,
so it's always good because, of course, at that level of time, at that stage, with that infrastructure, you can't have the exact.
Very true. Please highlight one difference, no? Like real life.
See, because eventually real life is because when we also go and sit as a judge to judge the students, first concession we give them is we give them that they're students.
Right.
So we don't take the flaws that seriously.
More considerate.
Yeah. So there's more chance of correction, and I would tell them, which you don't have much in the High Court, because your mistakes leads to your outcome of your case, which again affects the client. So there is hardly any scope of error in the real court and the moot court. And then the seriousness, because it's a moot court, so the intensity still lacks to the extent of the seriousness you have in the high courts, in the relevant courts, because there are direct repercussions and immediate repercussions. And as a judge also, when you're mooting, of course, law is what that particular judge is sitting and having that idea of that law.
True.
So there is a human angle of how you want. It's not just your case, your law point, but then how you are putting it across that individual judge and how he wants the matter to be put across. So there's a lot of constant reading factor of that individual before you are arguing. So these are things which a little lacks, because we are very normal in moot courts.
True. So during your college time, I think startup culture and everything must have started booming in Bangalore.
Yes.
Have you never thought of staying in Bangalore?
No, in the middle, like when I was in my final years, I had this thing that, let's not go to Patna, let's do something else.
Yeah.
But the thing to my advantage was, I thought that I was good for nothing, but only litigation.
Okay.
And I thought,
why do you say that?
Because I was so mentally tuned myself that right from the childhood, I was like litigation. So even while growing, I did not, nurture my other talents and all. I just wanted to focus on my career as a lawyer. So then I realized and because I've seen my father as a lawyer, so corporate world and all was never an option for me. So for me, law meant litigation. And of course, litigation, the best way to do was my hometown, because like I said, I had this advantage of having my father roaring practice. So,
but these days, what I see, a lot of even second generation or a lot of my friends, they have this mindset that they initially, right after college, they would gain experience with some firm or in a company, wherever they could get their hands on, to understand what is going on in the world right now.
Yes.
And then after a couple of years, they would come back to take care of their father's practice and everything. And the idea is that for those 2 years, they could have an bias-free opinion of themselves, how good market measures them. They could learn a thing or two, what is new in the market, and they could incorporate all of those. So what do you see? Is there value in doing that?
See, I think it's all individual based, like this, because you have to see your background, what you can afford to risk and what you can't. So because I have had a lot of interns, so they ask me, sir, what do I do, litigation or corporate? So I say, look, the advantage of being a corporate is that you have a stability. You have work, you have money, and you have everything there on the table when you are in the office.
True.
This disadvantage of litigation is completely uncertain. The only thing certain in litigation is uncertainty. Because today you have work, tomorrow you might not have. Tomorrow you may have, day after tomorrow you may not have. And then the volume of work is sometimes less, sometimes large. So it's very, very erratic in the beginning. It's very uncertain. You don't know anything. It's very uncertain. So if you are a background where you can afford that uncertainty, you can go back home for months without income. If you can go survive with that, then I say yes, you should. It's worth taking the risk, because the good thing about litigation is that the returns come slow, but once you start coming,
there's no going back.
There is no stopping to it, and plus there's no limit to it.
Sky is the limit.
Yeah, sky is the limit. And as I was told, I remember in my induction, as when we were getting those certificates from the bar. So Mr. Rajendra Prasad was he was a senior advocate who was giving us handing over the certificates. He's no more now, very lost to the bar. He's been a great service lawyer.
Was he from Aurangabad?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
So he told us that when he was handing the certificate, that two things he said, that best thing about this litigation, this profession, is that there's no one place of it. There can be 10 top lawyers, there can be 20 top lawyers, there can be 30. So you don't have to push anybody. There's always a room. You just have to reach there. So it's not, you don't have to pull somebody down, you don't have to throw somebody out. You do good, you'll be there. So that's a great thing in a profession. Then second thing he said, that because everybody is starting, so he was like, look, be a junior in a way that your senior cannot survive without you. So that those 2 points were very, very correct and true, and very, very encouraging. So I thought, yes, that's the way to go about it.
This was at the time of your enrollment?
My enrollment. So
which year was that?
That was 2007.
So just after your graduation, you came back to Bihar?
Yeah, immediately I just came back. I joined my father's office and then started off.
Do you remember what was the cost of enrollment back then?
That my munshi were taking care of, so I
because
don't
it got
that,
so exorbitant during my time. But
I know, but now Supreme Court has probably.
Yeah, well, he's a junior from my college, Christ.
Yes.
So because of his PI at the Supreme Court, the prices has come down.
Yes, but I don't remember exactly what, but I know it was very, very nominal, like probably around 500,000, some maximum 1,500 at that point.
I paid 26K.
26,000.
Yeah,
that's exorbitant.
Yeah, I know. Which is why I thought.
Yeah, but then
And also, you are saying that during enrollment you got facilitated by senior advocates at the High Court. Nothing like that happened for me.
Achha, nothing. Because at that point of time there was always some senior felicitating and handing over.
Different high courts have that. I see for my friends in Delhi and Kerala.
But I think that's very encouraging. I think
yes,
we should do
that
it
should happen.
Because see, I think litigation is a very glamorous work, and you idolize these personalities.
Yeah, like how you remember now what was said to you during your time.
Absolutely, and you don't just remember that, it becomes a part of you, and you want to achieve it. And when they say, you think that, look, these people are saying because they know that this is the way it has to be done, and they're the one who have reached it. You have been there, done that, and then they're telling you. So not listening to them is an opportunity you're wasting. So you should always listen to all these seniors who are so learned and who have their own experiences of reaching there.
True.
So, and that's the beauty about this litigation. Again, there is no one path to be successful. So everybody has draw their own path of success.
One unique.
So they have their own struggle, they have their own journey, but then they succeed.
True. We'll start with talking about your journey of being a senior advocate, because that's very recent. This year you were designated as a senior advocate. What's the process like?
See, the process, I'll tell you, I was in the day I joined bar, I always had this thing, like I said, because my father was very instrumental figure for me, and I really wanted to have a good impression about my working on him. So I knew I really wanted to work hard and get a designation, and during his active lifetime, as my gift to him, that
True.
this is my gift to you for all you have done to me, and I really worked hard for it.
I don't intend to ask your age, but he got designated at 39.
Yeah, so luckily it had the same reputation, so I applied at the age of 39.
Oh, great!
And by the time the result came, I crossed 50.
Okay.
So almost
40.
Yeah. So it's more or less the same. Yes, so that's also.
Walk me through the process, no?
Yes. See the process on paper. Everybody knows the process.
There are rules.
Yeah.
But on paper, I don't want to ask you.
Yes.
What I basically want to ask you, the rule says that there has to be a committee, which every year.
Yes, 1 year, every year they have to.
But that does not happen.
No, because this rule came in only subsequent to the Supreme Court decisions in the Indira case. So, and then all the high courts were not following it. So there happened a second case wherein the court said, you take out the rules. But of course, see, there's so much of pressure in the high courts that, and these are time-taking processes. Of course, they get delayed.
But talking about time-taking process, I'm currently reading a book where I learned Shri Arun Jaitley got designated as a senior advocate in 4 hours.
In 4 hours?
Yeah,
but those days, these procedures
were not. Actually,
they would just have a full bench and the full court will vote and then you decide.
Yeah, very interesting. I found this very interesting. Yeah. He got a call from then Prime Minister Shri VP Singh that basically to invite him to become ASG.
Okay.
And that is when it was realized that
He's
only
not
senior,
very
he is
good,
not
yeah.
senior advocate. So Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, he went to then Delhi High Court judge. I think it was Justice B.N. Kripal or something.
Okay.
So next day during lunch, he went to meet him, and by 4 o'clock he was designated as a
Yeah,
senior.
so that's the history how it
Yeah,
develops.
the rules were simpler. I think back then there were only 12 or 13 judges at Delhi High
Yes,
Court.
you can't compare now,
Yeah,
because
very
and
true.
plus if you see the number of lawyers then and now, and the number of cases then and now, it's
True.
exorbitantly grown now.
Yeah.
So it
So
was
what's the
important.
process now? Yeah.
See, now the process is that there are rules framed by the High Court. So it's like there's a committee who represents, and they have a marking system now. So they give you, you have 50 marks for your reportable judgments. Judgments I don't mean orders. So they want to see good law defining judgments which you have.
You have got so much reportable judgment.
Yeah, thank
During
God.
the period of my 2 years, you have the most number of reportable
Yes.
judgment that I could find.
So I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to, in the COVID times.
I mean, I have only seen you for those 2 years, but were those 2 years your golden years, or that's the case?
No, see, I that's what I feel, that I was lucky enough that I capitalized on the opportunity. I worked hard. I studied well.
True.
I was very true to my clients.
True.
I was true to the court as a lawyer, that I wouldn't want them to, just for the heck of, convincing him, I would say something which is unwarranted in a case. So I think all those added up and had a face value where the courts were also appreciating my arguments, and they would. That's why the amicus began, because courts appoint you amicus only when they trust you, and they trust your knowledge, they trust your competency, they trust that you'll work hard on it and say genuine things with legal backups and all that.
True.
So I was working, so I developed a good image to that extent, and the bar and the bench were very helpful to me, because all the senior would help me, guide me every time I went to them to ask for help. None of them said no to me. So that way, I think, and I now, after this, I realized that, a growth of an individual as a lawyer in a litigation side is not just his own effort. So there are so many other contributing factors which helps you, pushes you up towards the final goal. So that helped me, and of course, because the more you do, the more you recognize, these words go out, your clients, they hear you, they engage you more. So I had a good clientage then. So that's why my appearances were frequent, and then I would be in a position to assist the court properly. And then yes, that's how. And you were, yeah, of course, yeah, because you had saw me in my growing stages, so that I was growing. So, and in fact, litigation, I would say, so you're always growing. You don't reach a level where you say that.
I wouldn't say that I saw you during growing period, because you were always seen in the court.
Yeah.
I saw you just during those years. There were more than 3, 4, I think 4 reportable judgments in your hand.
Yes.
So it was a learning experience.
And also because that era where you were in, we were in COVID, and there was a lot happening in the state. So there was an eminent need for the courts to step in,
to intervene,
and then and for which we had a lot of important PILs.
Yes, we'll talk about all.
Yeah, so we can.
Who were just a couple of more questions on your journey as a senior advocate? There's a recommendation process, no? So were you recommended by someone at the bar or the bench?
No, I had approached. There were 2 senior lawyers, whom I respect, and Mr. Kaushal Jha and Mr. Rajiv Verma, sir. So they had the.
There must be a rule, no, that your father cannot recommend you. Is there a rule like that?
No, I don't think there's a rule of non-recommendation.
But
I thought it would be better if somebody else recommends. I didn't want to go to my father, because then it will look like it will be too obvious. Any father, because then it will not be on the merit. Then probably, of course, the father would always want the kid to grow better.
True.
So I wanted if there's somebody else, if they think I'm worth it, they could recommend. And I was lucky enough that they thought that I was deserving of it, and they did, and it came through. So it was a great moment, and even for the High Court, because now that now even the younger generation has this, that if you work hard, your work will be recognized and pay off. Because eventually, what was happening because of the delay and non-designation and all that, so there was a very lull stage where the lawyers, you'll reach a particular stage and you just want to cross that age to be considered. So now when we have this system, so we have other younger, even the Supreme Court, we have had younger people designated. So that's a very good motive of encouraging all the youngsters that, if you do really well, you can still achieve it. It's not just the age barrier.
Very
So it's
interesting.
like you're breaking the age barrier shackle with the recognizing the merits of an individual. So
I think 34 is the youngest.
Yes,
that
it
I
was
think,
Mr. Singhvi, I think.
Yes,
Dr.
yes,
Mr.
yes,
Singhvi.
Mr. Singhvi.
Yes.
That he was designated
35, because 34, 35. Something like that.
34,
Yeah, because I think the minimum, there is a limit of minimum 10 years.
10 years practice.
In fact, that's a constitutional limit for being a judge, appointed as a judge of the courts. 10-year minimum practice. So
I think 7 years, no? 7
no,
years.
10 years. 10 years is the minimum for the high courts.
For the high courts, yes.
Yeah, 10 years is the minimum practice. So I think that's what they have inculcated in the
For senior advocate.
senior advocates as well.
It's been what, 4 months since you have designated?
Yes, January
January.
was the notification it came.
Did things change for you?
Yes, of course, because of course, it's like people. I mean, I could see the bar having a respect for my knowledge and appreciating it. But now that when it's official, so half of the people I've come across are very happy about this. Half of them have been in a little conundrum stage, like you know. But then overall, I've had a very good experience, and it has changed because it then puts more responsibility on my shoulders. Not just me towards the bench and the bar, but also towards the juniors and the new generation lawyers and everybody else, that I have to teach them in the correct way, and not the ways which are unethical of a lawyer. So that's the extra responsibility which comes on you.
Very nice. Before we move on to discussing about your cases, one thing that we missed talking about is, which you are discussing earlier, that during all of these phases, like now you have become senior advocate, now things are only going good for you, if I could say that. But we did not talk about your struggling phase where you got doubtful about if I'm in when you returned back.
So I had the same experience like you just explained about your friend, that everybody would relate you to your father. So I remember initially one of the clients coming to me and saying that, sir, I would want you to appear. So I was also shocked that why is he wanting me to appear, because those days they didn't want the younger people to appear. So he said, don't worry, because the name you're carrying with you is sufficient for me. So then I realized, okay, so this is the mentality now. People judge you by your name initially. So you have to do good, otherwise they'll start judging you the bad ways. So I started working hard, and yes, of course, you're always
compared. But this one time that you talked to your brother and he...
so I used to tell him that, actually my initial problem more than the profession itself was the place, trying to come, because I had come back from Bangalore, and then the whole culture was different, and the whole, you had to change your whole thought process, your discipline, your routine. So it was a little, I was finding difficult, because in those times Patna was different. Patna is not what it was now. So there weren't much people of my age era.
Would you call it an intellectual loneliness, that you could not find more people like you to have a meaningful conversation?
No, but it wasn't an intellectual loneliness. It was just loneliness.
Okay, it was just loneliness.
Because there wasn't much place where I could hang out with my friends and vent my anger, frustration, whatever it was. And there was very limited...
No, because finding people are everywhere. But the problem with culture of a place, what happens is, you are in tune to having a certain form of conversation.
Exactly.
And when you don't find these set of people where you could engage in such conversation, then you get into such form of learning.
But that's what I said. This profession itself is so intellectual that, after this, you want to hang out with non-intellectual people, because that's the break you get.
Okay.
So, and then you want to relax yourself. You don't want to sit and discuss politics and talk about social reform and all that, because you're already, from morning to night, you have been talking this and doing this and being stressed about it and come out. So my problem was this, that, after all these stressful days and nights, like there was hardly areas where I could go and feel happy, feel relaxed, feel a little light. So I would often speak to my brother in Bombay and that I want to quit, I want to go somewhere else. And he was very instrumental, he was very encouraging, and And in fact, it's because
How
of
many siblings do you have?
we are three brothers and one sister.
Okay.
So I'm the youngest one.
Okay.
So, and we are all very close to each other. So I think I give my credit of my success to all of us who have been emotionally together and supporting each other in
Great.
goods and the bads. So emotionally, especially because you have days where you are low, so you have your brothers and sisters and your friends pushing you through that. So that's very important.
Are you the only one who is practicing law?
Yes, I'm the only one amongst all four of us practicing law.
Okay. So that negates the impression that from a fraternity, people who come from fraternity, all their children study law.
In fact, it was not for me. Probably my father would have been the last one of the family. But now we have, because I continued, now we have my cousins now also coming in this profession. And like I said, it's not because of just, it's the change in the profession and the respect, the thing,
True.
The respect,
Things are
the
changing.
work, the money, everything which has come in this profession. So even the younger generation, it's a very good time now, I think, for a person to join in the litigation.
True. So you called your brother and
yes, and he would keep telling me, and he was working there that time. So he had a shoot with Mr. Saurav Ganguly. So he had some encouraging word written from him for me, and very nice of him to have sent it to me, and I would read it, and it was.
Was it a letter or on a?
It was just a paper. On a paper, he had written that, "Dear Ashish, don't worry, keep going. Nothing goes waste."
Okay.
So what he meant was don't think that your time is being wasted there. But whatever you're doing, eventually somewhere down the line is gonna come useful.
You got validation from Saurav Ganguly.
So these little things does affect a lot. So in fact, that point of time, it was not little; it was very big for me. That getting these validations and encouragements and all that. So, and he told me that, okay, Ashish, if you want to quit, you quit, but then decide alternatively. Don't quit before you decide what you need to do. Okay. So I was like, okay, that's a good point. So and I couldn't come up with anything that if not this, then what? So then I continued.
Right. We'll move on to discuss about some of your cases that I have seen you being part of. Of all the cases that I've seen you, I got more inspired by the PILs.
Yes, because I think PIL is a very important aspect of our constitutional and social setup.
True. So you have been part of a lot of PILs. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
We'll start with the PILs that has been very personal to me, because there were these two PILs from my own hometown, Muzaffarpur.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that.
Yes.
First one was on the basis of Times of India report.
Yes.
So in that case, I'll give the background, and then I'll ask your legal questions and the contributions that you have made. So Justice S. Kumar in the morning reads this in Times of India, that a lady on Muzaffarpur railway station is lying down on the floor.
She's dead. Yeah.
She's dead, and her child is
3 years
child is by her side and crying about it, and it was a very sensational kind of news. And when the court started, he brought this before Justice Karol, and the bench took motu cognizance of the matter. And then the court, I think, appointed you as an amicus.
Yes,
How did that happen? Were you there in the court because of which?
Yes, I was there in other matters, and so that matter had taken up, and then the Honorable Court saw me and then thought that I was good enough to assist the court to that extent.
Matter, yeah.
So of course, I was very happy to have had that opportunity. And we had also read the news, and of course, and it was during the COVID times where everything was very uncertain. The life was at risk.
I think at this point of time, courts were virtual. No? I think
yes,
I saw you online.
It was virtual, and then sometimes it was opening and then closing.
But during this case, I think we were online.
Yes, we were online initially. Yeah. And then, so I remember, because then after this case, the court took cognizance of this and noticed there were YouTube videos of the child with the mother. So because, and then I worked on it, and at that point of time, because it was a pandemic, so there was a National Disaster Management Act, which we have the central government, so which talks about the actions to be taken by the authorities and the state governments, and more so because it was a very unfortunate case where a child it was left unhindered, untouched, and the mother was there. So the fear was not just that the mother had passed away, but the fear was also that what if there was a COVID and
Yeah.
the child could contract it.
More than that, more than the case which touches everyone's conscience, there were legal issues involved, and those legal issues that I could think of is if the actual
Registration.
cause of death
Yes.
was known, what actually happened with this lady.
Yes.
B was what would happen to the child. The well-being of the
Yes.
child is important. And C, I guess, if what are the various actions taken by the authorities?
So one error in that case, what I could saw was that, to a great surprise, it was a unnatural death, probably because from the one go you couldn't see what the cause of
And
death.
cause of death was not.
No, it was not. So it was under the CRPC. If there is an unnatural death, then it was duty of the
Postmortem
officer
is
to have a FIR registered and get the postmortem done.
But that was not done.
But no, but we got to know from the information when the state was asked to submit affidavits.
Yes.
We got to know that the police has handed over the body, and the body has been done away with also by the family members. And it was a Muslim community, so they had done it in there according to their own religion. And so they posed a question as to, the court posed a question as to why, what made you ascertain that it was a natural cause of death? How would you know it was a natural death without even getting the postmortem done? So there was no answer to it. So that was one flaw which was detected. And then because it was under the Disaster Management Act, it was imperative that, the people who have, it is important to test and see if there was a COVID symptoms around for people who have passed unnaturally. And because you wouldn't know whether she was suffering from COVID or was it a COVID death or a natural death. And then the child. So ultimately, because we couldn't do that because that stage had crossed, so then we took up the cause of the well-being of the child.
Whether due compensation.
Because he was unattended. So then the affidavits were filed, and then we got to know that he has his grandparents surviving. So they were given some compensation, and then the government ensured that the education facilities extended to the child. So after all those affidavits were filed, then the court dropped the proceeding. So I think it did well for the well-being, which in fact it was the directive principle of the Constitution mandates the state to do. So health. And
what was one more interesting thing for me was to note in the Indian Railways affidavit, they say that media has completely sensationalized the issue in a way that they have cropped out other family members who are also there at the moment, but they have only shown the mother and the child to make the news more sensational.
Yes, because that came in the fact that was brought to us that probably that news was only not completely correct, to the extent that, of course, there was a moment when they were alone.
And this was important for me because this was the first time I could experience firsthand that how media is a two-way sword. One way, absolutely, it is communicating, it is intimating public that okay, this is being done, but the other way, it is also telling it in a way that it constantly hits someone's conscience.
It's like, instead of just what goes wrong is, instead of just showing what it is, if you show the way you want it to be, there is when you start building up people's perception, and then and they have an opinion about it without knowing the total facts.
Yes, because railway, they were saying that this was never brought, the issue was never brought to us. Instead of doing this, if they would have brought this issue to us, we would have done the needful.
Yes,
but that was not.
But anyway, good thing was, like, whoever did it, it eventually happened, and the child was taken care of, handed over to the custody of the parents, grandparents, and the state government. There was various yojanas, school padhai yojana and this yojana. So they got it. The grandparents also got some benefit to take care of the child. So eventually, yes, they were taken care of.
What I also thought with this case was that how there's also, with everything that we do, there's also some form of selection bias, in a way that that was the most terrible time that we could think of, and this must not be one standalone case.
Absolutely.
Because but this case, by some Almighty regions, this case was read by Justice S. Kumar and taken cognizance of this matter, and such benefits were given to this particular child.
See, I think of course, because this, I think, the PIL, the public interest litigation, is so vast to the extent that it goes to all the, it's like an exception to the limits of the High Courts under Article 226, because the strict rule of 226 then gives way when it comes to PIL. And of course, we in India, with so many crores of population, and of course with relevant problems, every individual, poverty, health, job, employment, crime. So, I mean, it's endless. So, if you start talking about every action the court indulging in and entertaining PIL, then it will damage the other laws, the other clients, the other persons whose rights are affected, the fundamental rights, qua the person they are
That is
fighting.
one of the criticism of PIL.
So it has to be pick and choose, like, and pick and choose is not, see, nobody knows that family, nobody knows, it was neither religion based, it was nor caste based, so it's just, so there's some human factor to it. So some people, sometimes if your luck is good, then you get chosen out of the luck.
True. I mean, there's one way of seeing this, that there's pick and choose.
Yeah.
There's a selection bias, but there's another way.
There has to be a selection. But
there has to be, but there's another way that I could think of is that because even if such one particular case has been highlighted, brought before, that sets the ball rolling for the state to take action in these matters. Like during those times, I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud.
But I'll tell you what, see, like I've always said, see, law is there, judges are there, but then judges are also individual humans. So every human has some perception of some softness, some corner. So I remember, I mean, I was not in the court that time, like I had not even joined practice, but the then Chief Justice would take up, he was more animal lover, so he would take up this dolphin, the Bihar ka sauce, which the Gandak mein, they PIL, and then he would have the entire administration running and taking care. So none of the other courts did it because they were not more inclined to animals. They thought, we'll just
the
take care
personal
of the human
politics
person.
plays a role.
Yeah. So then comes different chiefs. So now our Justice Mr. Karol, he was
pro PIL.
Absolutely pro PIL, and his PIL, if you see, you have been there, so he was taking care of everything. So roads, infrastructure, which was mandatory for all. Then
I could not identify any PIs.
Health, sanitization. So it was hardly. So his regime, pick and choose, was very, very good to the extent that he touched all the subjects.
All the subjects, and I could not point my finger to any of this one case where court should not have intervened. So like there are cases, even Supreme Court, we can have a lot of opinion that these are the cases which is beyond the realm of writ jurisdiction. But
so I mean, that's what I say. PIL is then it becomes your individual approach to it. So some court are more PIL based because they think that PIL has a larger effect in the society because it not affects or just gives relief to an individual, but to the society as a whole. So I think the balance is what is important.
True.
So that's how it has to go.
True.
So while maintaining the balance, of course, there has to be pick and choose. You can't just. So I mean, those who get chosen are the lucky ones.
Yes. Again, another case again from Muzaffarpur, in which there was a free clinical eye checkup camp where people cataract surgery was done, and on a single day I think some 60-65 surgeries were performed, and most of them people were going blind. So this case was all over the media. I think some social worker from Bihar came before Patna High Court and indulged court into this matter.
Absolutely.
Again, you were appointed an amicus.
So it was shocking for me also because I mean the very problem was that if such kind of a medical camp is being attended, then of course it has to be done under the guidance of professionals, and if it is being done by professional, then such disaster, if I can say, I mean it was just shocking to the conscience that because it was not only just disastrous to the individual, then it was a trust issue for the citizens to trust these organizations in holding these camps, because see, a lot of people can't afford heavy medicines and operationals and all that. So these camps come a great forward to help those kind of persons. But if these things happen, it completely takes away the trust from your government and the people involved in it.
True.
So, and also and it goes back to the medical fitness of the people who are doing it. So it's a very deep-rooted consequences to it.
I think a doctor was only performing, but he
Yes, so
wasn't.
eventually I remember because see, we have a Jacob Matthews law laid down by the Apex Court where when it comes to a medical profession, you can't just have a directly FIR because of course they are miss hits and then each body reacts differently to a operation. So it was required that the team be inquired into and then looked into this aspect. So I made a suggestion that let's have a team of it, legally have a proceeding. So a team was conducted and the team went and submitted its report. And in most of the reports, they said that the flaw was because of the tools which were being used. They were not properly sanitized.
And also the number, the quantity of people.
No, then it turned out that around out of the people who were done, there were 22 who complained of the eye issues, and around 9 to 10 people who lost a vision in the eye.
Okay.
One vision, eye vision.
Okay.
So they was identified. So promptly thereafter, FIR was registered. I think that hospital was also shut.
It was a clear case of medical negligence.
Yes, absolutely. But then once the FIR was registered, then the court said that now the
was FIR registered after the indulgence of High Court, or because in this case NHRC also took suo motu cognizance, and just after this case, when it was all over the media, senior doctor from Muzaffarpur, they also started internal inquiry.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to ask is, when such cases happen, is there multiple inquiries, or when High Courts take cognizance,
of
everything?
Course, each institution is free to have their own matter inquired.
Okay.
So, I mean, but those are institutional. So there is a presumption when we are in a judiciary, when we talk about the reports. So we generally tend to feel that a suo motu inquiry is perhaps may not be a very accurate inquiry report. So to remove all doubt, it is very imperative that once the court decides that these are the persons who will be the inquiry, so the element of biasness is reduced.
Yes.
And there is more trust on such inquiry report, because you cannot become a judge of your own cause. So I can't do wrong and I have my own team inquire into my conduct.
Principle of natural justice is more absorbed by the court.
Yeah, so that's not justice seeing to be done. So justice seeing to be done is also important. So for that, it's important to have an independent inquiry, independent report, and then some independent authority acting on it. So that the court took cognizance. Eventually, the FIR was instituted, and then the concerned IO was directed to reach to the conclusion of investigation, whatever it was, and then the compensations were granted to all these people, and then the proceedings were dropped eventually.
So those were the results of this matter, that there was FIR against the doctor.
So the effect was that the law took its course. The legal machinery came into picture. The FIR was instituted. Investigation proceeded. The person who lost their eyes were immediately compensated, and then the rest was for the police official to verify and give the report. Okay. And until that point of time, I think even the hospital they had locked. So I'm not sure now if
was it a government hospital or.
See, the hospital was not a government hospital; it was a private institute.
But is there a law around when you institute a camp like this, you need certain permission?
They had this permission, so that's what the affidavit says. So they had these permissions and everything from the respective authorities, and so that's what it was shocking.
Because when you are instituting such camps, especially targeting vulnerable groups, there has to be more. I don't know.
There has to be more strict compliance.
Because
and more.
You are setting a very wrong precedent, because people will be afraid in securing free medical aid.
Absolutely. So it breaks the trust of people on the governance that if these things are happening with the government intact, then and with the government who is responsible for the health of the people. So it doesn't put across a good message.
Right.
So that's why we have these rules and regulation, and it is imperative to be followed at its hilt, so that and especially in medical fields and all that, because the body is very sensitive, the eyes especially. So apparently the report said that because of the tools which was used and the sanitization and the tables where it was performed, so that was that was not properly done. So ultimately, yes, now the liability has to be fixed upon somebody for this, such kind of ignorance and negligence. But we don't know what the final report was there.
Another PIL, again on its own motion, court took on its own motion during my time again, was the functioning of the tribunal in
Yes,
Bihar.
yes.
So what was the issue
See,
legally?
so I think this in the COVID time, this was one of the most important things to be done. See, because in our constitutional framework, see, we have these constitutional bodies like high courts and then the tribunals. So they are all important equally for functioning, because the high court cannot just cater to every cases. So these tribunals have been carved out, one for easy access of the people, that they have one reach, that if you have a problem, it's not that everybody is coming to the high court. So it makes an individual's problem easy, that you have a tribunal, you go there, you exhaust your claim, and then ultimately if you don't succeed, you reach. And I think without these functioning of this tribunal, I think it only frustrates the functioning of the high court, because
even in lot of PILs, I could find that court first asks whether you have exhausted your alternate remedy.
So because there's an object behind these remedies, because they are special code, the government has worked on it, the finances are going in, the infrastructure is there. So that's the whole idea of having it. So because, and then there comes an expert opinion. So their decision is more in the nature of an expert opinion, which can be judged by the high court. And there are very much parameters which the courts don't excise. For example, a preliminary inquiry, investigation, or to that matter, the examination of witnesses and all that. So that can be done in various tribunals, because they have those quasi judicial powers and all that. So it prepares a case in a way that is easier for the high court to judge thereafter. So those are important. And of course, we have parameters where the courts can directly intervene. But otherwise, barring them, it's always better to go for the factual aspect to the tribunals. So
what was
those
the
were
issue?
defunct. So now these tribunal consist of them officers and the chairman, some retired judges as chairman, and the appointees are the state government in consultation with the high court and all. So now, because of this COVID, because of the lockdown, they stopped functioning. And because they stopped functioning, the high court was functioning through electronic mode. So every petition was being filed in the high court, so, which was choking the entire thing. So then it got to the notice that...
So these tribunals were functioning before pre-COVID?
Yes, pre-COVID they were functioning. And of course, more or less, some of them were not, because there was some appointment which was to be done, which couldn't be done. So
that is always the case, no?
But here the problem was that these, even if functioning, they didn't have the infrastructure to deal with these COVID situations.
Yes, like they could function online.
Yes, they could function. They didn't have the manpower, they didn't have the infrastructure, they didn't have the mechanism, the machinery, the knowledge. So this was a great endeavor, I think, and it has gone a long way in supporting the litigants during these COVID times. And eventually, with the intervention of the courts, the state government were directed to allocate funds, make appointment of the vacant posts, and immediately start this function running. So I think it was a great endeavor. It was just needed at that point of time.
So during COVID, only all of them started functioning?
See, the COVID time, it was earlier functioning, barring few because of the appointment issue. And then because it got the larger issue, so all the tribunal detail we got. And we had the vacancies enlisted. So because we were doing it, the court rightly proceeded to ensure that all the tribunals are filled and then they function properly. So that was finally done.
Are these tribunals functioning well now?
See, I don't know whether they're functioning well or not, but of course, because these appointments are tenure based, so some retire, so then after retirement, you have to wait for the committee members to again appoint. So there's always a little gap in that. But I just hope that all of them are functioning.
Okay. One more PIL that I could think of is this Bangladeshi repatriation case.
So this was, in fact, as far as I remember, there was a lawyer who had filed this writ.
Yes.
And
The lawyer was in civil court, and this lady came to him.
Yes.
Or someone told.
No, I think what I was told that he had visited this aftercare home in Patna, and he found this Bangladeshi woman, and I think by the time he saw that he got to know that she was a minor when she was there. So she has been there for 5 years.
She was in remand home.
Yeah, remand home. So then he filed a court cognizance, and subsequently then the court appointed me to assist. And then I went through these foreign laws, as in like the Passport Act, the Foreign Act, and all that.
Foreigners Act.
Yes, Foreigners Act and all that. And then I realized that yes, then the state gave an affidavit that there is no FIR against her. So it's not that she is held up as a. So we asked her, how are you, on what authority of law are you detaining her, and why in remand home? Because she was probably so then the question arose was the remand homes and the aftercare facilities we have here, because then I got to know the laws that under the Foreigners Act, there are tribunals to decide the issue of nationality, and there is a separate notifications issued by pursuant to Supreme Court directions and all that by External Home Ministry of India, that where specific these care homes have to be built up, and that care home needs to have the facility of education for children, good health, good eating, good environment, and everything. Then we started asking for reports of how many people all over Bihar are detained. So they were.
So she was in remand home only because she was from another country, from
because
Bangladesh.
no
FIR was filed, no action was
taken. They could
taken.
not bring any FIR as to why, and then she said, and they were like withholding her. I don't know why. So we started examining the laws, and then we had this
but
law
she
of
ended
repatriation.
up there at the first place because she was an immigrant.
Yes, but then after even immigrant,
but they did not start any action.
Yes, they ought to have taken an action, consulted the embassy, figured out her nationality, and then immediately repatriated her. There's a repatriation rule also.
Right.
So then we assisted the court. The court gave directions, and then they contacted the Calcutta embassy, which contacted the Bangladeshi embassy, and her identity was confirmed. And then eventually she was then repatriated to Bangladesh. But the sad part was, like, these things should have been done. She was unnecessarily remained for 5 years.
For 5 years.
5 years she was there, imagine. And I was
Did she want to go back?
Of course, that's what, in fact, there was a lot of talks because for a while, in fact, we even had a committee to go and talk to her in the cell as if, So she said that, she's been taken care of. She's not had that much issue. Because the lawyer was making a lot of allegation that, she's being put to bad use and she's not been treated well and all that. So I found it fit that to assist the court, seek a request for having a team constituted and go have an interaction with her and see the working and the place for her. And then we got to know that even there are care center cells inside the jail. So then I said, this is not permissible. You can't have a care center. You have to keep it away. She's not a culprit or a convict or a person accused.
Even there's no FIR at the.
Yes, because of no FIR. So but eventually they got away. But it got into light these issues of repatriation of foreigners, then the aftercare centers and all that stuff.
So were there more people?
Yes, there were around 7-8 Nepalese, 3-4 Bangladeshi total. So
all of them were,
yes, one by one they were repatriated. But some of them, they said that they were FIR. So if they had an FIR, they had to be dealt with a little differently.
Interesting. So in all of these cases, you were appointed as an amicus.
Yes.
What question that I had is this the role of an amicus is completely pro bono, or were you paid by
No,
the
see,
state?
there are two types of, you can either do pro bono or you are appointed by the court directs you your remuneration. So in some I was acted remuneration, in some I did pro bono. So that's a pure.
So I think that only happens when it becomes part of the judicial order.
Yes.
Like if you are to pay, because in some orders I could say that court directs that you will be paid so and so.
Exactly. Otherwise, generally the rule of amicus is that you should. It's pro bono.
It's pro bono.
It's an extension of benefit of your knowledge and assistance you are giving to the court for something out of which the society is to benefit, not any individual. So that's the whole idea.
Last time I was talking with Nivedita madam, and she said that when you're appointed as a court commissioner, and when you go to different places to prepare a report on
Yes.
court's behest, then if all the accommodation and everything is done by state.
Yes.
But again, the same thing, that in some cases, if court puts it into the judicial order, then you are
No, but
remunerated.
as a court commissioner is different than an amicus.
Being an amicus.
Because court commissioner is basically you're a agent of the court going for a site verification. It's like an eye of the court to give the correct picture. In fact, I remember I was also appointed as a court commissioner, and there was a land dispute in Hajipur between a private individual and the state government.
Okay.
So the state was alleging that their land has been encroached, and they were alleging that their land had been their land. It was their land, and the state has wrongly destructed and broken away their construction, claiming it to be their land. So I was appointed as an amicus. So as an amicus, as a court commissioner. So of course these are sensitive issues, and you need protection when you are going there as a court. So you have these persons from court attending you, then you report to the DM or to the police superintendent of police, and you have this whole team of police with you who guides you through. Because of course you need protection, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I had to get this land measured and all, which itself was a huge task. So eventually that was done. So it's important for a court commissioner to feel secure to give a valid finding.
So court commissioner, are you saying that court commissioner are remunerated for the job that they do, but amicus not necessarily, from case to case?
No, that also, the remuneration is also again subject to the court's order. So they may order for a court commissioner to be paid remuneration, but then, like I said, these things have to be done, like,
by the court.
Yeah.
If the court feels so.
If the court feels
Okay, great. I think we have covered all the PILs.
Yes.
There are other cases that I have to talk about, but I think I have exhausted my time. Maybe we'll sit another time to talk about those cases. Sure. But I wanted to ask, you have already suggested me a very wonderful book by Justice Katriya to know more about Patna High Court.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you if there's any book that you could name that has played a very transformative life.
See, I mean, one thing I'll tell you, that though on my entire legal profession, whatever time I've had, I've read just the Supreme Court books and all. But few books which I've read, one of them which I say is by the late Mr. Farias Nariman. His book was Before the Memory Fades.
Before the Memory Fades.
So I think that book all the newcomers should definitely read, because it gives a very good insight of not just the judgments, the landmark judgments like Keshavananda Bharati and all, but it gives a very good history behind it. And if you read, then you realize the actual effort and how narrow a fact is in laying down a law. So I mean, see, when we talk about constitutional laws, like, which the mother of our all judgment is the Keshavananda Bharati law, which says that the basic structure of the constitution
cannot be.
So now everybody read it, but now if you read that book, you realize how thin line there was in having this law to have a different law itself. So this gives you, and then you realize the efforts which are required and other things which are involved, and how the decision comes, the whole process. It's a very good light on the whole decision making process. So I think every youngsters should
before the
memory fades away. And because he also talks about how a young lawyer should argue, and his demeanor, his strategies and all that. So it's a very good eye-opening book.
It's an impeccable. There's a lot of lectures and everything on YouTube by Mr. Nariman that one could watch.
I think he's one of my favorite persons. To the extent of advocacy with good responsibility and behavioral experiences is concerned, because he's always was a very humble and very, very genuine guy who's had a very good passion for this profession. And with the changing scenario, I see a lot of people, a lot of aggression coming in, both in bar and the benches, and so which is not a good thing for the litigation as a whole.
Right.
So it is important for us now to go back to these legends and see how they were and try to follow that here.
Right. What would be your one advice for anyone who is contemplating to pursue law or to start his practice from Bihar?
You see, I've always been giving this advice that you need to be patient in this profession.
Patience. Yeah.
This is not a profession where you'll find something overnight.
I think patience and persistence.
Absolutely. See, so patience, in fact, you can, so if you don't have patience, you cannot be persistent.
Persistent, yes. One complements another.
Yes, so you have to have that patience, and you have to have, it's like fishing. You put your net, you don't know whether you catch a fish,
Right.
but you have to keep waiting. You fizzle around, you won't have a chance of it. So you have to be absolutely patient, wait. There are days, good days, bad days, worst days, very good days, and then worst day immediately. So it's like it's a great ups and downs.
Right.
So you have to be absolutely patient about
And why one should do that, you have already stated, because it brings lot of autonomy, social standing.
Of course, see,
the benefits are.
Yeah, I think it's a very respectable profession,
Yes.
and if you do it diligently with all your dedication and maintaining that decorum and the ethics which is required to be followed by a lawyer, I think then the sky is the limit. I think you are respected by the bar, you are respected by the bench, you are respected by the clients, you are respected in the society. So there is a win-win situation.
Right. On my last show, Miss Nivedita Nivikar was here, and she had a question for my next guest. She did not know it was you.
Okay.
She was expecting to ask someone senior.
Yeah.
But either way, I'll ask you what she had to ask. Do you find it any difficult working with women at the bar? If yes, what are the difficulties?
See, I think I don't find anything difficult women at the bar, because when you are at the bar, you are working, you just see one thing, which is that you are a lawyer. Now, it doesn't matter if the lawyer is a male or a female or tall or short or fat or thin, because all you need to, in that field, all you are wanting is your fact, the other person's fact, and the way they tackle. So it is basically one mind versus the other one. So it doesn't matter whether it's a boy, it's a girl, or female. So I don't see, as a litigant, as a lawyer, I don't see any difference as to who is standing behind. I mean, so far as the male or female is concerned. So if I know, the only two criteria is the knowledge and the experience. So you judge the lawyer with the knowledge and experience, not with what sex they belong to.
Okay, you do not find any difference?
No, because see, I've been a believer that, when you prepare yourself, you prepare at the level of your acumen, and of course, yes, then you prepare yourself knowing who is your opponent, and then it doesn't matter. Then you judge your opponent by her intelligence or his intelligence and his success and his strategies and all. So it doesn't matter how it is, because sometimes you may find it difficult with a man on the respondent side who's more prepared than you, and sometimes if it's a female, then if she's more prepared, then she'll be more heavy on you in your argument. So it's this individual acumen which determines.
Very well said. It was great talking to you. I mean,
and also I would want to add up that this is the reason why you see the statue of justice is her eyes are tapered. It's not because the law is blind. It's because we don't need eyes to do justice. We need our ears and we need our mouth, and the pen. So as a lawyer, also I think this philosophy adopts, because you shouldn't see who is around you, and you should just prepare your brief irrespective of who's opposing you, with your great diligence, and then place it before and that's for the court to decide who did better. You do the best and let the court decide who did better.
Right. Also, these are ideals we all are pursuing to reach there. Thank you for your valuable time. I have had a lot of questions to ask you. Maybe I'll end this with your assurance that we'll sit again to discuss all of those cases.
I would love to come back again after a few years maybe and or months, and then have discussion on more legal aspect, which goes to the larger sects and help them out in whatever ways, understanding the system, the law, and the story behind an individual or a lawyer for that matter.
Thank you very much for your time. Before we wrap up, I would want your question that I'm going to ask from my next guest. Yes.
Okay, so I think
basically something that is written by you. Idea is I'll have something that is written by you and also your signature. And I'll ask this with whoever is going to be my next guest on this. If you have listened to us till now, I'm confident that I'm doing something worthy of my time. Please consider supporting us by liking and subscribing to this channel. Thank you.